UFO Disclosure by Neil A. Hogan. The crash rocked her houseboat, and Cameron leapt off her bed, running quickly up the tiny steps to the deck. Her lenses instantly connected to her app blog and began thought-spraying the scene unfolding before her. She turned at the sound of high-pitched whirring and saw a large black drone lasering the starboard side of her boat from the bow. Cameron could feel from the rapidly sloping deck that it was too late for her home, but there was still something she could do. She ran over to the emergency box, pulled open the waterproof lid, grabbed a flare gun, aimed and fired. After a short pop and fizz, the flare collided with the drone and exploded. Cameron ducked as shrapnel shot out in all directions, narrowly missing her. With nothing more than the clothes she'd fallen asleep in, she ran down the tiny port decking next to the wheelhouse to where the ship was moored. In the early morning light, the severed rope was faintly visible, and the houseboat had already drifted a little from the jetty. Cameron quickly went through her options in the seconds she had. She could swim, but river water didn't go too well with her cybernetic enhancements. If she fell in now, it would take her weeks to recover. She could jump, but if she didn't jump now, she wouldn't make it. Without much of a run-up, she ran forward as fast as she could, then leapt from the side of the boat, across the widening gap, and landed, rolling safely on the rickety wooden planks of the jetty. She collapsed and turned to see her houseboat tip on its side and slowly sink into the river.
No,
She said, tears coming to her eyes.
that's everything I owned.
Just then, a message appeared across her eyes.
I know who did it. Meet me at the Hawkesbury River Cafe in 10 minutes. Please disable your lenses.
As bubbles rose where her houseboat used to be, Cameron realized she had no other choice. The woman was cowled and wearing sunglasses, but Cameron could make out dark curly hair, and her bronze smile looked familiar, but she couldn't place her. At this time, Cameron didn't feel like smiling in return.
Miss Cameron Jones, what a pleasure to meet you finally. I'm sorry for the disguise, but I can't be seen here. As you've just lost your home, you can understand my precautions. Please don't turn on your blog lenses during our chat. It will cause a problem for both of us. I can't say more than that for the moment.
Shouldn't I be in disguise too?
You're already being tracked with all your enhancements. In my position, I can't afford to have them, but the cameras around here are fitted with facial recognition. I'm also using a voice synthesizer.
Then she became serious.
Here's the deal. A UD is close and will be revealed soon by an Australian government official, but evidence is needed. We need you to get into a hangar in Kirigini National Park, where it is believed a UFO is being hidden, spray some video on your blog and get everyone talking about it. Mass media, make it go viral, as an influencer.
Cameron looked at her angrily.
I've just lost my damn home. I'm roomless, clothesless, and I have absolutely no way of getting to Western Australia financially. At this point, alien UFO disclosure is low down on my list.
The woman smiled thinly.
This is not a gig economy contract, my dear Cameron. All expenses will be paid. I've already transferred $200,000 credits to your bank account as a goodwill gesture. You can use it straight away to buy a new houseboat, or you can use it to help you on your journey in comfort. Though I would recommend buying something other than a houseboat, but I'll tell you about that another time. Even so, at the end of the contract will be another $200,000. So you do the math.
Cameron was about to access her balance when she realized it required her eyes. Damn it. She'd have to trust her.
I don't want it. I don't want to be involved in your game. Cancel the credit. Take it back. I'd prefer to do my own thing. Fight these people on my own terms.
The woman frowned.
I have read your blog posts. For a 20-year-old, you seem to know more than most 30-year-olds, but you still have to get some life experience. You still need to think about the bigger picture and those not in your tribe, those not in a similar situation to you. Think about your country, the planet, the solar system, not just your needs.
Cameron slit her eyelids, annoyed.
I do think of others. Disclosure would change the world. What's in it for you anyway? If you're in the government, won't this ruin your career?
I do what is best for my country.
The woman said, getting up quickly.
You have an hour.
Then the woman placed a room card on the table with an address.
This is your hotel room. Clothes and toiletries have been delivered. Freshen up and think about it. Hotels we can book anonymously. Long-distance flights, you'll need your voice print. As soon as we detect you've bought your ticket, further information will be sent to your cloud. Once you've memorized it, disconnect and only reconnect when you're next to the UFO.
The woman looked briefly over her glasses at her dark brown eyes kindly and encouraging.
I trust you will make the right decision.
With that, her black cloak swishing around her, the woman disappeared quickly, and Cameron saw she had not even touched the coffee she'd paid for. What was going on? Cameron paced the plush carpet of the hotel room, thinking crazily. The woman hadn't told her who had destroyed her houseboat, but it could have been any number of people. A rogue state not wanting to reveal their contact with aliens, an irritated blogger, a business owner thinking she's crazy, an ex. She shook her head. She was sure she'd find out later. She had other things to worry about. Feeling better after her shower and wearing the latest in color-changing combat fatigues that had been left for her, she headed back to the hotel room's holographic display screen, showing sites with the best flights to the city of Tom Price, a township in the north of Western Australia. She looked down the options, frowning. She didn't want to do this. But when she thought about it, she had everything at her fingertips to get her into a hangar where a real UFO had been hidden. It would blow the lid on the whole deal. If she could get enough footage, disclosure would happen. No one could dismiss it, and it would change the world. She'd already checked her balance, $200,000 plus her life savings of $2,500. She could leave at any time, but this was the moment of truth.
What the hell?
With only minutes to go before her time was up, she clicked on the booking she'd chosen. The ticket was delivered to her cloud, and within seconds, messages and files arrived as well.
Welcome aboard,
said a lens message.
The file contains a map and security schedules for the base. An aircar will take you from the airport to your destination. Good luck.
Cameron looked at the message grimly. She was going to have to follow the flow the whole way without really knowing what was going on. She just had to trust that these government types knew what they were doing. Not the best position to be in. Before completely disconnecting for quite a long time, she headed to her blog. Just under the video of the drone destroying her houseboat, she added,
I'm going out now, and I may be sometime.
If anything, that would get her readers talking. 10 hours later, and a tired Cameron was stumbling out of an airplane and along a long corridor, heading for the transfer point. She had been grateful of the lunch on the flight over, and right now would have liked to sleep, but knew she didn't have much time. It was winter, and nightfall would be early. She had to trust that her path had been timed well. Just as she began to pass an almost invisible side corridor, a hand snaked out and tapped her on the shoulder.
Miss Jones, this way, please.
Cameron's eyes widened in surprise as she took in the recently carved hole in the corridor's side, hastily added strips of plastic, and the almost invisible woman in black. Leading from the hole were a flight of wheeled-in steps. Cameron was about to speak, but the woman put her finger to her lips and pointed towards the stairs, then the quadcopter sitting not far away. Cameron nodded, then without another look back, headed down the steps and across the runway. The quadcopter's door opened, and she climbed inside. As it slid closed, she discovered that there was no one inside, and no one in the pilot's seat, an aircar with an AI pilot. Everyone had been talking about how they wanted one of these, and that only government officials had them. Here she was, in one, and she couldn't even record it. Well, at least she could talk with the AI.
Hello.
At your service, Miss Jones,
replied a tinny feminine voice from a small speaker inset into the wall.
I trust your journey was a pleasant one?
Yes, thank you, AI. How long till we get there?
Oh, not long. You'll need to be ready. I must drop you off lower down Mount Punaruna so that I can't be seen from the base. I'll remain in the area, then pick you up when you're done.
I understand,
replied Cameron. From the records she'd read, she knew that she would need to hide behind a tour group to a certain point, then head into the barren scrubland, being careful to avoid snakes and other creatures, then make it to the base under the cover of darkness. She looked out the window at the reddish landscape that stretched beyond the town, now darkening in the encroaching dusk. They had timed everything quite well.
I'd advise taking a nap,
said the AI.
Estimated time, 25 minutes.
Do you have any idea why they chose me?
No, Ms. Jones. My knowledge is limited. I just follow my orders. Sweet dreams.
Cameron felt the aircar turn slightly, then head on its journey. While she had caught up on some sleep on the plane, more was always better. With nothing else she could do without compromising her location, she dozed off. Cameron had expected electric fences with barbed wire. To find the base was simply a collection of tents and a couple of aircraft hangars was quite a surprise, and a little disappointing, especially with so many curious hikers and four-wheel drives in the area. Perhaps there wasn't anything really worth seeing here. Soldiers had a perimeter to check, and she'd seen 2 of them making the rounds as she headed up the sloping terrain. They had been quite easy to avoid, so perhaps this place was more for training new recruits than for guarding international secrets. But she knew that, with everything she had just been through, there must be something here. No one would spend that much money to get her here otherwise. She was now standing in the shadows of one of the aircraft hangars. The doorway was brightly lit, and there was no way she could enter without being seen. But the hangar was made with simple corrugated iron and metal beams. It was quite large, at least 200 meters square. Perhaps there was another way in. She carefully walked around the outside, feeling the walls for any loose-fitting panels. She knew that if she couldn't get in under the cover of darkness, she would have to run through the lamplight and spray her thoughts on her blog as quickly as possible. But first, she had to make sure there was something worthwhile inside. As she reached the end of the far wall, she discovered something she hadn't been expecting at all. The aircraft hangar simply ended against the mountain. For a moment she wondered why it had been built against it, but then realized it was probably financial. They could save the cost of a wall. Still, it meant getting around it was now harder than she thought. Unless she could get through the roof. She heard the jangle of booted feet on patrol near the front and pushed herself further into the side of the mountain, her clothes getting darker as she touched the reddish rocks. The soldiers moved away again, and she breathed a sigh of relief. Near her were some jutting rocks ideal as hand and footholds, and she quickly pulled herself up the height of the hangar, then moved across to a rocky ledge that was close to the roof. She was pleased to see she could see directly in, but then saw that it only contained Peace Force cars. She stopped herself from swearing, then looked across the compound for an easy way to get to the other hangar. From here she could see that the soldiers were now heading out towards the boundary. They would make their way around again in about 30 minutes. Across from her were more rock ledges. Rather than crawl back down, she made her way across to the other hangar, climbing through the trees, but using the more trustworthy rocks to balance. At this point, the soldiers' backs were to her, and with her camouflage clothing, unlikely to see her. As she got closer, she was elated to see she could see the UFO from her vantage point. The roof had even less covering, and much of what was inside was clear from outside. Almost slipping in excitement, she carefully calmed herself and made her way to a part of the mountain where she could crouch. Down below her, through the metal slats in the roof, a wide saucer shape sat unguarded, half of it still inside the mountain. Cameron looked at it incredulously. It was inside the mountain? But why? Then she noticed digging equipment and detection tools. It wasn't being stored here. It was being excavated. She had to get closer. Just as she was about to step across to the ceiling, her foot slipped and she quickly grabbed a stable boulder for support. A number of rocks tumbled down the side to land with a thud on the dirt. She immediately froze, waiting for the inevitable booted feet. Then she heard the loud whistling of the wind around her and relaxed. It was unlikely anyone would have heard. She inched across and clambered carefully onto the roof, relieved that she had the wind and her soft soles disguising her steps on the iron. This was it, the perfect view of the half UFO from the top. She turned on her lenses and began thought spraying. Almost instantly, comments began coming back to her. Embedded in the rock? Merged atoms? Isostatic rebound? She immediately turned the messages off and focused. She inched across the roof and was surprised to find a line of horizontal metal pipes welded to the wall below her, like a makeshift ladder. Lucky! Otherwise she would have had to hang down, then drop, and hope her cybernetics would protect her ankles. Sliding through a gap in the roof and reaching her feet over, she stepped on the first rung and carefully made her way down, grimacing at the slight creaks that the metal made as it took her weight. The lamplight still blazed brightly near the front of the hangar, and she was sure she'd have a few seconds to hide if someone came to the doorway. Her clothes had already shifted to a brownish grey, blending seamlessly with the rusty walls, and the wind was still disguising her footfalls. It was possible someone was planning to come back here, as the door was still open. She had to be quick, if that was the case. She finished climbing down to the dusty floor, skirted around various digging equipment, and went over to the UFO. Almost tentatively, not quite believing she was there, she reached out a hand to touch it. It was cold, and its surface felt frictionless, like running her hand across wet ice.
Finally,
She whispered.
I'm here. with an actual UFO. I hope you're getting this. Location signal being sent now. The information is out. If I get shot, at least you'll all know the truth.
Had they excavated the entrance yet? She looked underneath. 3 large spheres surrounding a wide lens-like aperture greeted her, but the far edge of the UFO was still embedded. Perhaps the door was there. She moved around and crouched under further, increasing the light detection of her lens to show crystal-clear images in the darker area. And then she spotted something that looked like a long button, a rectangular shape embedded in the metal. Could this open a door? Or perhaps it was a symbol of some kind. She moved carefully over to it and wiped the dust off it with her fingertips, then recoiled in alarm.
No! No!
But it was too late. There, in plain English, was the message, "Made in Australia, from local and imported materials." And she'd just thought sprayed it on her blog with billions of followers. It would set Disclosure back decades. She backed away, gasping, and immediately attempted to delete her post.
Access denied.
As her stomach began knotting up in realization that this had been a trick from the beginning, she turned angrily to see 2 soldiers standing at the entrance, patiently waiting.
You just waited until I sprayed this, didn't you?
She yelled.
Miss Jones,
Said one of the soldiers, her hand stroking what looked like an energy weapon.
you are under arrest. The base supervisor requires your presence.
Cameron made to run to the metal bars that would take her back to the roof, but the soldier just laughed.
I was hoping you would do that.
She flipped the blaster in her direction and fired. As Cameron passed out from the inevitable electrical overload her implants gave her, she began to think that her cybernetic enhancements were more trouble than they were worth. Cameron awoke, slightly shaken, and felt the cold cement against her cheek.
That's it then.
She said, struggling to get up. Her lenses had already restarted, and her other physical enhancements were recalibrating. So, the blast hadn't been that strong then. She struggled to her feet to face the soldiers and was surprised to find they were lying on the ground, not far away from her. A message appeared across her eyes.
Meet me on the roof.
Cameron immediately turned back to the pipes and quickly scaled them, pulling herself onto the roof of the warehouse. Her aircar was waiting for her, balancing carefully on adjoining struts, its fans keeping its weight off the fragile girders. Another message across her lens.
Get in. Hurry.
Just then, a blue blast of energy sizzled past her, and she ran to the open aircar door. As the door started closing behind her, the aircar lifted quickly, and more blasts were fired, just missing it. The soldiers would probably radio for reinforcements, but unless they're chased with another aircar, they wouldn't get them now.
You reflected the blast back to them with some kind of shield? I only got a small amount.
Dispersion field. As soon as I was able to confirm your blog transmission, I headed here to pick you up. I note that your lenses are transmitting.
Should I turn them off?
No, please continue your live feed. Ms. Jones, I've been advised to tell you that what you did today is great work. The president is very happy with you and will be referring to your story in her press release.
The president?
Ms. Luana Tilbury will be giving a special announcement at a conference today.
But there's nothing to announce. The UFO says, "Made in Australia."
That is interesting.
Cameron slumped back in her seat in dismay. This was not what she had planned at all. If it really was made here, why all the secrecy? She checked the number of people viewing her blog. In the past few minutes, her blog traffic had spiked to almost 1 billion viewers. Not as much as a music release, but pretty close. She had to keep them updated. Otherwise, sponsorship deals would dry up.
I've just escaped from the base thanks to an aircar and can now speak freely. Sorry for the secrecy over the past 15 hours. Now that you've seen it, you can understand my reluctance to reveal anything before this.
She paused and uploaded the data.
Of course, finding a UFO that has "Made in Australia" on it isn't the most wonderful of news. However, there is a lot more to it than that. Firstly, the UFO is still buried in the side of the mountain. Excavation works have not been completed yet, and so you've got to wonder why it was there in the first place.
Cameron paused the blog there, leaving the question open for her readers' comments. She had no answer, but she hoped to find out more soon. Then she realized where they weren't heading.
So we're not going back to the airport?
A little detour. The president is in the town of Tom Price and is going to make the announcement from there.
But surely Canberra would be...
Unsafe at the moment. Too many black drones with lasers flying around the area.
And there aren't going to be any here?
Only you, me, and a few of her trusted advisors will be here. Her itinerary is off the record.
I get it.
The president wanted her. She had no idea her influence had spread that far. The community hall was packed. Being a Saturday, it was probably quite easy to get people from this little township to attend. Cameron grinned as she realized that the winds were quite strong today. Perfect for disrupting any black drones. She posted a note about that on her blog, then waited for the conference to start. Cameron activated her feed again, with blink and saccadic movement reduction, and began her commentary via internal voice.
The President of Australia, Ms. Lawana Tilbury, is going to speak in a moment. She is likely to make a disclosure announcement as a result of what I posted today. Unfortunately, I don't believe it is the disclosure announcement that we all really want. I believe this is no longer a disclosure, but a cover-up disguised as one. So no little pinkish grey men. In any case, you'll find out soon enough.
A distinguished lady in a dark brown suit with short, curly black hair, her dark skin accentuated by the carefully designed red and brown background, took the podium. There was a hush as the reporters and reporter Travbots waited, their monitor drones, cap cameras, and on-air glasses recording, broadcasting, editing, correcting, and auto-adding icons. Years of addressing reporters meant when the holodrones rose near her, the president maintained her gaze steadfastly forward. No double and triple bleeding images existed of her. She was probably the most hologenic of the recent crop of politicians, and the media loved her. Cameron was no exception, and she was doing her best to stare directly so that her lens didn't flick around too much. She was going to have dry eyes at the end of this. The president smiled. It was her signal that she was about to begin. But Cameron almost gasped out loud as the hair rose on the back of her neck. Now she knew where she'd seen that smile before. It was the president that had met her in the cafe yesterday. It had been the president that had been calling the shots the whole time, and if this had been a manipulation from the start, it had been the president who had organized the whole thing. And now she knew she was in a much more dangerous position than she had thought, black drones notwithstanding.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. It is time for the people of Australia to learn that governments around the world have been in contact with them since the 1940s. But the time has not yet been right to reveal this knowledge. Data downloads are now available from the Gov app, revealing every documented case, every meeting with them, and all images and pictures.
Above the assembled journalists, and in the center of the room, a hollow video flashed on. First a white light so that cameras could target quickly, and then a slowly turning image of a metal, disc-shaped object. There were gasps in the crowd as some got to see a UFO close for the first time. A red box appeared in the image to highlight a section, and the reporters turned their heads and moved their drones slowly to the box, scanning across it, taking in small details, and zooming carefully to specific areas. The hologram then faded to a close-up, a side that showed an inscription, an English inscription that looked like "Made in Australia," with the rest of the line blurred into the space beyond. There was an uproar as the journalists suddenly understood that this was not a disclosure. This was not about extraterrestrial life. This was not about aliens at all. Cameron smiled grimly. Even with millions of people reading her blog, the news hadn't got out to these other journalists. She was beginning to wonder whether her blog was worth it, but then remembered her sponsors were still paying her bills. She also remembered she didn't read any of these other journalists' blogs either. She'd been stuck in her own echo chamber for far too long. The hollow image faded, and lights turned on over the president.
Of course, there's no such thing as little green men.
The room murmured with polite laughter and some angry comments.
However, our future selves may sometimes be mistaken for aliens.
She pointed at the space where the hologram used to be.
This device was made by us, but not yet, and probably from an alternate future timeline. Somehow it has travelled back in time, and we don't just have one of them. We've so far found 47, which all arrived at around the same time in the past.
One of the journalists put his hands up.
So, it's like a future experiment, and they keep losing UFOs back in time.
The president allowed the question.
Well, firstly, they're IFOS now, as we have identified them.
The crowd politely laughed again, while some groaned. Tilbury continued.
We don't yet know. It could be a future experiment, or perhaps they're just kids' Christmas presents that got stuck in the tree of time.
Cameron saw that Tilbury looked in her direction and gave her a slight nod. Then she looked across to the other side of the room. A hand went up on the far side near the entrance. An older woman with long grey hair in a purple dress, wearing old-fashioned glasses, had been professionally made up and looked more like a presenter than a journalist. She also seemed familiar. Perhaps she was someone she'd researched a long time ago. There was no way she could be a journalist. Maybe she was one of the locals.
Why here?
The lady began.
Why are they appearing now? If they left from a point in Australia and went back in time, they wouldn't end up in Australia unless they were guided. The planet orbits the sun, and the sun keeps moving through the galaxy, and the galaxy moves through the local group. They'd never accidentally find the planet again unless they meant to.
The president nodded.
Exactly. That is a very good question. This is why we are releasing this information now. We need to find the answer to this mystery. There could be UFO hidden anywhere. I implore the public to report any UFOs they may find and to sign up for regular updates via the Gov app.
She whispered a thank you to the questioner, then looked around to see a dark-suited woman in sunglasses not far from the podium. She began approaching the president. Cameron noticed there was a tiny signal exchange between them, and then the president turned back to the crowd.
Even so, we've been able to backwards engineer them and have developed a production facility in...
The woman whispered something in the president's ear, with her hand over her mouth to prevent lip-reading software. The president nodded, then turned back to the waiting journalists.
Sorry, I thought I would be able to answer more questions, but I have duties to attend to. Please install the app, download the materials, make your reports, and to the general public, please register now to receive regular updates.
As she left the stage, Cameron observed the journalists and travbots quickly pressing stop, sending reports, tapping on their glasses, or standing still with their eyes closed, finalizing a thought report. None of them tried to ask a last question, as they knew the president never answered them once she left the podium. Cameron's eyes narrowed. Was that some kind of staged scene to get viewers to think about their factory of IFOs, a disclosure event, and no aliens? Aliens was where it was at. It's what she'd been researching most of her teenage years for. She was going to get to the bottom of this. She did wonder, though, what had called the president away right in the middle of one of the most important press conferences in history. Just then, a loud increasing whine pierced the air. Then a deafening crash shook the windows of the convention room and caused clouds of plaster to fall on the journalists. Anyone who had turned their equipment off was quickly turning it on again. In the melee, an old hand reached out for Cameron, the drapes of her purple dress almost concealing her walking stick in the other.
Come quickly. We don't have much time.
They pushed through to the back of the room while the crowd was pouring out the front door.
Special access,
said the old woman, adjusting her glasses.
My car is out the back.
They quickly went along a carpeted area and through some fire escape doors to an asphalt car park. The woman pointed with something in her hand, and an aircar directly in front of them beeped.
Seriously?
Cameron said.
I'm not sure about getting in a car with a septuagenarian driving who doesn't have implants.
The woman looked at her, then laughed.
Cameron, dear. Who drives these days? A iPilot. I just need to set the destination and press start.
They got in, the wings unfolded, and the aircar lifted off, banked to the left, then headed several blocks away. In the distance, Cameron could see what had caused the crash, and her mouth fell open. She immediately began spraying her thoughts all over her blog, her software assembling everything logically and neatly for her readers. A huge hole about 5 Olympic swimming pools wide, with a circular shape sticking out of it, smoking. Said the old lady.
That's impressive. Maybe there are aliens inside.
Or humans from the future.
The lady shrugged and continued to look at the UFO out the window of the aircar as it came closer. Cameron had been so taken with this turn of events that she completely forgot she had access to facial recognition software. Her data filled her in on her new companion. Ms. Annie Jo, Air Force pilot, retired several years ago to do a degree in astrobiology. Then Cameron remembered. Annie had contacted her with some information last year, blurred video from some of the operations she'd run across the South China Sea. Cameron hadn't used it on her blog at the time, as the Sino Union's AI thought it wasn't in the public's best interest yet, but the multiple UFO sightings recorded in the radar records were clear and obvious.
Annie!
Said Cameron.
You recognized me.
Annie turned back to her.
I still follow your feed.
She tapped her glasses as the aircar approached the crash site.
I wish I still had the energy to do what you do. Now I pore over reports myself with a cup of tea, wondering where all my time has gone.
And I guess the occasional quick trip to random townships far from anywhere.
Annie smiled.
Oh, I love a good disclosure. And luckily I moved to this mining town only a week ago on the suggestion of a friend. Are you still running a live feed? Your subscribers will love this.
Cameron nodded. The aircar banked again, then came into land not far from the crash site. The UFO had buried into the land without skidding first, as though hitting a target. A smell of sulfur, hot iron, and burnt rock assailed their senses as they exited. Annie walked steadfastly forward, confident, poised, ready to meet anything that appeared from the craft. Cameron, however, held back a little. A UFO dormant in a military base was one thing. One that has newly crashed with possible hurt or dead life forms on board was another thing altogether. Annie saw Cameron's look of concern and flashed her a smile.
Oh, don't worry, dear. If what Loana said was true, future humans are on board. If she's wrong, we get first contact, no matter what happens. Win-win.
Cameron hurried up next to her.
I'm also slightly worried about my cybernetic implants. This close to something pouring out so much electromagnetic radiation, I'm starting to feel positively weak at the knees.
Just then, sirens began wailing, and Annie quickened her pace.
Don't worry, it's on the low side. You should be fine. Find the door. We have to get in before the place is cordoned off.
Cameron activated her scanning equipment and analyzed the ship.
No door.
Oh, well, maybe it only exists when we get closer.
At that moment, a robot sentry burned across the park to stand in front of them.
Halt, or a suppression field will be used.
Annie laughed.
I have nothing for you to suppress.
Cybernetic enhancements,
said Cameron.
I'm afraid I do.
Annie looked sadly at her.
I'll have to go it alone then. Keep the robot occupied.
Confused, the robot began sending out a suppression signal to Annie, so Cameron began speaking.
Hey robot, over here. I've got a blaster.
The dome-shaped bot turned to her, and Annie slipped around the back of it and hit the off switch.
Are you okay?
She asked Cameron as the robot powered down. Cameron nodded, and they made it quickly to the edge of the UFO. Annie pulled her sleeve down to cover her hand and reached out to touch it. Then she pulled her sleeve off and touched it again.
Cool already.
Cameron put her hand on it too, and suddenly a section parted to reveal a corridor not far from them.
It looks like we've been invited in.
Annie said excitedly. Cameron felt fear begin to envelop her and started shuddering.
I'm sorry, but I don't think I can.
She tried to move forward, but found her fear was holding her back. Why? This is stupid. Angrily, with tears in her eyes, she activated her internal systems.
Walk!
She said, and her augmented legs obliged, pushing her closer to the doorway while every part of her screamed not to.
I can't do this.
Easier for me, as I've been here before.
It was then that Cameron got a flashback of the conference. The president had looked in Annie's direction before she had risen her hand. She lowered her eyebrows.
Wait, you've been here before.
Oh, yes. Come on. You're still broadcasting, yes?
Well,
Follow me. You'll love it.
Annie went in front of her and entered the UFO, with Cameron's cybernetics automatically taking her inside after her. Cameron looked incredulous as carpeted floor and what looked like wallpaper on the walls stretched before her.
no otherworldly lighting.
She said aloud while posted to her blog.
No ethereal wraiths wanting to take my soul or sterile beds with invisible tools inset into surfaces. I wasn't expecting it to be so kitschy.
Maybe the aliens want you to feel more comfortable?
I think this is making me feel a lot less comfortable.
Her fear had left her, and she was starting to feel annoyed again. Wallpaper in a UFO? Definitely some kind of hoax.
This way.
Said Annie, leading her into a central area that featured 6 seats, a circular space with hooks on the floor that could hold onto storage boxes, and a dashboard that plainly showed their recent trajectory. Other corridors led off that looked like they might lead to sleeping areas. At the back was at least something remotely alien, a large column flickering with energy. Cameron looked at it in dismay as she realized some of the instructions on the panels were in English.
I want to tell my abduction story, if that's okay with you,
said Annie, and she stood in front of the 6 seats, ready to tell her story. Cameron was taken aback, but as Annie had helped her get here, she thought it was the least she could do.
Oh, okay, you're live.
Annie wept her arms wide.
Hi, I'm Annie Jo, and I have a story to tell you. A long time ago, I was abducted. Well, detained. I was taken inside an incredible ship with amazing technology. The ship had everything you could ever want. An AI to control everything at your simplest order. Systems to create food, adjust pressure and temperature, and plenty of space for a family. I thought that I was going to be operated on, but they simply took me around the solar system and back. It was such an amazing experience, and I felt so free. Ever since then, I wanted to own one myself.
Then she put her hand on the dashboard of the UFO.
And this is it, people. The latest in private transport. Designed in the future. Backwards engineered for today's technology, and available to buy from your federal government today for just $80,000 US. The first 1,000,000 buyers will have free border visas so that you can land in any country you like. Yes, the UFOs can travel internationally. They will even take you into orbit, in fact, any place around the solar system for as long as you like, recharging from the radiation of space itself. You only need to pay for maintenance. The future of travel is here.
Then she gave a big smile and said,
I'm so happy now I can say to my friends I effed off in an IFO.
Cameron's face was red and she was shaking.
I've shut off the feed. I've been tricked this whole time, haven't I? This isn't disclosure. This is a selling opportunity for premium aircars.
Well, perhaps the result might seem like a trick, but everything you did and everything we told you is quite accurate. There was no fake news, just what you wanted to believe.
Cameron turned and stomped out of the UFO. Outside, journalists and writerbots had gathered. A woman pointed a metal finger mic at her.
Miss Jones, will you buy one when it becomes available?
Cameron ignored the woman.
Miss Jones,
Called another.
do you think you'll sell 1,000,000?
Free trips to any place in the solar system, Ms. Jones. An amazing deal.
Cameron pushed her way through the crowd and kept walking. She then realized a woman was standing behind everyone, with a cowl and sunglasses. She was tempted to pull off her hood.
All this time and everything you put me through was just to sell these damn UFOs?
Not the black drones, Ms. Jones, but they are just competitors. Your other $200,000 has been transferred, so if you want to buy a new houseboat, but I do recommend an IFO instead.
But why?
The IFOs will replace the income we lost when robots were exempted from income tax, wars became obsolete, and everyone decided to take on untaxable gigs rather than full-time work, giving everyone the freedom to travel the solar system, but with everything state-owned means the government will survive.
Why the crash?
Spectacle first, psychology next. People will remember it and be a bit more careful with their purchases. Let's not have people crashing into neighbours' homes when they go manual. Hopefully, everyone will stick to automatic flight.
Cameron frowned.
What about real aliens?
Recording?
I'm not sure I should.
Please do. But fake my voice and blur my image. Your readers will love it.
Cameron resignedly restarted her thought spray and morphed the president so that she was unrecognizable.
Go ahead.
In the solar system, at a precise location we're yet to determine, is a real alien base left over from the explosion of Moldek. We know it's out there somewhere, but we don't have the resources to go and look for it. Perhaps our citizen scientists...
I've shut it off. You just want to send everyone on a treasure hunt with their UFOs. It'll be another reason to sell.
Tilbury clapped her hands together.
You've got it!
Then she grew serious again, just as Annie came up behind her.
Thank you, Miss Jo. Are you still recording?
Cameron turned to Annie, surprised. She pointed at her glasses.
Old style. But I got everything. A new virtual reality show. Recorded everything from cameras inside the hotel, the aircar, the warehouse, and more. It'll be the reality documentary of the century. Going live now.
Cameron was speechless.
But she's been such a good sport, Ms. President. I think she should get a much better reward.
Of course.
Nodded Tilbury.
And I have the best reward for her.
Several police and police bots gathered behind the president and Annie, and Tilbury made a show of revealing herself, shaking her hair out with the police nodding and looking surprised, then clapping.
Ms. Cameron Jones,
said the president, giving her a little bow.
For your help in uncovering this world secret. You are the first to receive a free personal IFO of your own, which you can explore the solar system with. Not only that, but we believe you also deserve the award of 2027 Australian of the Year.
Annie smiled and took Cameron's hand, then shook it.
Congratulations, Ms. Jones. A wonderful achievement.
Then Annie stood in front of the president, and Tilbury addressed anyone watching through her glasses.
And in honour of this great achievement, the IFOs will be discounted to $50,000 for the next hour. Visit the government website to find out more.
The whole group then launched into an advertising jingle about IFOs, with the slogan IF'd off in an IFO. Barely able to take a breath, beyond furious, Cameron felt every cybernetic part in her body struggle not to overload as she reconnected and thought-sprayed what she thought about the whole situation.
The Alien Secrets app has overloaded. We apologize for any inconvenience. In the meantime, click here to order your interplanetary IFO for just $50,000 Australian dollars.